is Community Unity Now, the D Tycoon Show. This is Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and I am Trudy Leong, Administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Our very special guest is Keith Kysel. He is a political activist, and he also tried running for the elected Chicago School Board member. How are you today, Keith?
I'm doing okay. How's everything with you?
Very well. First of all, Keith, tell us how you got involved in politics and when and why.
Okay, my first involvement in politics was in 1998, 1999, when I used to be a member of the CAPS, and I lived in a community that had a liquor store that was crime-ridden. You know, a lot of crime was going around, shootings on 79th and Essex, so me and my CAPS facilitator, we gathered enough signatures in the precinct to vote the precinct dry to get rid of the liquor stores. But at that time, the former alderman, William Beavers, later got convicted. He didn't want those liquor stores to be gone for obvious reasons. So he sent somebody from out the precinct to retract the signatures, whatever stories they may have told. And I figured that if I was going to get rid of these liquor stores, I was going to have to try to get rid of the alderman.
Mm-hmm. And what ward is that?
That was the 7th Ward.
And what does retract mean for it?
That means you get enough signatures, get enough people to say, to unsign their signatures to saying they would change their mind about wanting to get rid of to vote the precinct dry. Mm-hmm. So to retract their signatures. And so the first time I ran, I made a rookie mistake. I didn't send one of my, what papers was that, economic interest to the right spot.
Statement of economic interest.
Right, so I got knocked off the next time. I didn't get knocked off. I didn't win, but I didn't get knocked off. You spend a lot of money trying to get me knocked off. But
And you ran for alderman?
Right.
Against him?
I didn't spend a dime against his lawyers. They probably couldn't figure out why they couldn't knock me off. But... And then I ran for state rep in 2006, and then when Esther Golar passed away, I tried to get appointed because when she died, one of my bills, a gun bill that I had wrote about if you claim that your gun was stolen or lost 3 times within 2 years, you lose your FOIA card because people were buying guns, selling it, saying it was stolen, buying guns, selling it. So when she died, my gun bill died, but I didn't get appointed, and here I am now.
Who would have appointed you, and was it the head of the party in that ward? And,
basically, it would have been different committee men in that area, and but the only one that actually interviewed, well, I knew I had one alderman's back already, but he was like a minor alderman, but one of the major point, John Daly was the only one to actually interview me who had major influence in that voting. It was fixed, you know. And I wasn't going to, I just wanted to fulfill the term. From the understanding, what I heard was if they would have gone with a placeholder, it would have been me. And then some didn't believe my word when I said I was not going to run in the primary. I was not going to run in the primary because I was working for the CTA and I wasn't going to quit before my pension time. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to finish the term. So, and I've run I've been on a few LSCs as well. Mm-hmm. So those are my political background.
It's not that easy to ask people to retract the signatures. That takes a lot of work. So what they did probably was after you submitted those initial signatures, they got a copy, and then they went door to door asking people if they would retract.
And he forgot to tell them, don't knock on my door. That's how I found out. He forgot to tell them not to knock on my door.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they knocked on your door as well?
Yeah, that's how I found out.
Oh, my goodness. Did they offer to pay you?
No.
Okay.
I wish he would have. He would have probably been convicted for that.
Mm. So recently you wanted to run for elected Chicago School Board member. What inspired you to do that, and how did it go?
Well, since I retired from driving buses with the CTA, I've been working in the CPS either as a substitute teacher or a seeker. So I've been to a lot of schools. I've seen the different situations going on Then I've been working with the migrants and helping to get their kids on. So I think I would have, from a parent, and being as a parent, I'm also a PAC president as well. I've been with the PTO at my daughter's former school and the current PAC chairman of Limberloom High School. So as a parent and an employee and as a taxpayer, I believe that I have a lot. I've seen a lot from all the ends. So as far as the school board is concerned, it shouldn't be just a board, just one people's agenda. It should be the reflection of the taxpayers, the parents, administration, and then the union, the staff. It should have everybody's interest working together for the betterment of the students. And being that I'm a parent and a staff member, and a parent and a union member, and then a parent leader, I think I had the expertise. Not saying I knew everything, but I think I knew enough to see what's going on in the school system, where improvement was working and what needed to be in improvements.
What kind of improvements were you promoting on your platform?
Well, one good example, I went to sub at a school, and it was a school that had no teachers at the beginning of the school year, like August of last year, and it was a cluster preschool, and they had not had a teacher since the January before. And so they put a person like me that don't know a thing about clustering, about cluster students. I mean, I go out for those who work with them, but I didn't know a thing about how to handle. And they had an inexperienced aide in the room. So I'm looking at, well, what kind of education could I give these kids? I mean, they have subs like me every day who don't know how to handle these students. Instead of trained students, why don't we take some of these students, if you can find a bus, and just put them in the school that actually has a teacher and the space to put them in there, instead of just leaving these kids to subs who don't know what the heck they're doing with the students.
So we met at the most recent Chicago Public Schools board meeting.
Yes.
And that was the one with the board that is no longer with us.
Yeah.
That's a different story.
Right.
But during public comment, which would seem like over an hour, and not everyone got to speak because there's a new lottery system that doesn't seem very fair to me.
I was shocked I got picked.
So, out of all those issues that you heard of the schools, the Chicago Public Schools, the asbestos, them not owning the building, a lot of different other issues, the lead paint peeling from the walls, and it being too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter, and a lot of different financial budgeting issues. Out of all of that, if you had gone through with it, not got bumped off, what would be your priority out of all those issues we heard
To be honest with
together?
you, I've been in some of these schools. I've been into these schools that were built, high schools that were built for 1,300 students, with maybe about 200 with peeling and paint. We have to ask that question: is the money worth fixing these schools up? If not, and I propose, as I even said, if you can, I have no problem if you could relocate or could merge a school, providing that, just clear, providing that no staff will lose their job. In the past, they closed schools and merged schools and staff lost their job. But I've been in schools that only half the building was used. There have been schools where they couldn't find a teacher for a certain subject. And these are large buildings. It was built when the city had 3 million people. Now we may have 2.5 million people. So yes, you have to make a conscious. If you cannot, I think I heard that CVCA on 87th Street might need millions of dollars with renovations. But with the amount of student body, do you want to spend that much money for a school that might crumble again 10 years later? So what do we do? Do we merge schools? Do we build new buildings, smaller buildings that's affordable? Because these buildings going to take up a lot of heat, to take up a lot of air conditioning. So what do you do? So yes, now that's why you have to look at, is that worth saving? And then you have to look at, are the charter schools really taking that many students away from the major schools? But if you look at the population in some communities, I live in the new city near Inglewood areas, you have vacant lots. Those vacant lots used to have kids. It's not there anymore. The migrants is basically some of these schools are being emptier than they are.
And I've noticed that when there's a Chicago Public Schools board meeting, it's in one of those better schools usually.
Right.
It's not in one of those schools that we hear the issues about, with all those issues I mentioned earlier. And when we're at the Chicago Public Schools, along with the Chicago Teachers Union first public bargaining session, that school also did not have, the gym did not have heating or air issues or peeling walls or anything. They're showcasing, it seems like they're showcasing
I never noticed that, but you
only
got a
their
point
best.
there. Right.
And that doesn't demonstrate, in my opinion, that they're addressing the issues. They may be sweeping
Right.
some of these issues under the rug.
Right, and like I said, I've been to these schools, and I know that some of these schools, peeling paint, drafty windows. You might have one school that's hot on one side and cold on the other side, and so you have to look at, are these schools worth? Are these build? I don't want to say schools. Are these buildings worth keeping, or can you build a new building? And then what do you do with the vacant buildings that you have now? They're just sitting there. I did an FI request on one school. They never give me the information. How much does it cost? I think I did the school over the apartment on 51st Street. I asked to give me information. How much are you spending to maintain the school since it's been closed? And they never gave me the information.
When they used Roberto Clemente High School, for the meeting. I think I might have heard that there were bad conditions over there, but who knows if they repaired those conditions before holding the meeting. Also, do you know if you mentioned that might it be worth salvaging the schools, repairing them? Do they do engineering studies to calculate, to determine whether it's feasible or not to go ahead and repair any do repairs?
I'm not sure, but you can always do the FOI and find out. Yeah.
But you did FOIA them, and they did not respond to you. Did they respond to you at all, saying like give them more time, or did they not even respond to you?
I asked them, first they gave me more time, and then they asked me, I asked them 2 questions, but they said, well, all the information I was looking for, the other one was about something totally different, but then they break down, should be public information. Well, it was public information, I wouldn't be asking you. So I'm going to be quiet again, so I take it they don't want to answer that question. Because you got to heat you got to keep the schools heated, otherwise they're going to fall apart. You're going to have mold, so you got to maintain it. And so would it be cheaper just give the building away? If you can't find a buyer, give it away to a developer, if nothing else. And there's one thing I do agree with what the union said, and I don't believe this should be a contract issue. But some of these empty schools, part of it can be used for homeless students. The ones that are truly homeless, and that's a whole other story because. None of these, the definition, this really is a federal issue of homelessness, basically means that your parent does not have a lease, name is not on the lease or a mortgage. Well, in the traditional black family or the extended family, you're not able to have the parents still living at home with their mother, but not on the lease, so technically under that definition, that child is homeless. And that child will be homeless for 8 years at the same address. But they're really not homeless. But this is a very loose definition of what homeless is, but that's basically from the McKinney-Vemo Act, which is basically a federal law.
And you're talking about trying to get these homeless students into a school to at least go to school, right?
Right. So maybe you can use some of these schools. Could have been half of them. You could be a place for people who are truly in need of a place.
Got it.
Yeah, but you got to figure out how you can make sure it's totally separated from the school, because you might have some unsalary individuals. You don't want them being able to get into the school.
Yes, and getting back to the FOIA, sometimes FOIAs are notoriously unanswered. For instance, we did a FOIA with the medical examiner about a death, and then they said that it's been answered. So it's in the website. All you have to do is click on the person's name, and then there are the documents there. You click on the documents, and they're there. But when I click on the documents, there's nothing there.
Oh, it happens to you too?
Yes.
I thought it was just me.
No.
And don't even try doing a FOIA on an alderman or an alderman's office. they'll give you a completely nonsense answer as well.
Yeah, they say that they are not a public body that is under the Public Meetings Act, so they are not foilable. Any meeting that they hold as a ward meeting is not foilable because it's not a public body.
So I'm going to say something that seems very simple. Aren't they publicly elected officials? And aren't these offices and all of these meeting facilities paid for by the public? And how come not foilable?
Maybe it's a different kind of public official. Who knows what kind of category they are.
That sounds like maybe a lawsuit or somebody. Yeah, because you got a point there. If it's public, then just get the public information.
Right, and it's nothing that there's anything to hide. There shouldn't be anything to hide since we already had the public meeting and everybody saw what happened at the public meeting. Anyway, getting back to you, Keith. You spoke at public comment. Could you tell us what you spoke about?
Oh, one of the things I spoke about that night was we have schools. Like I said, I've been working with the migrants issue, and I take the stand as first of all, yes, because I'm in between. I'm like a moderate. I believe we should have strong borders, but once you're in here, still look out for them. Now, you still got to look out for the kids because the kids have no choice to come here. And so I'll take it to some of these empty schools. You take a school like Holmes on Garfield, maybe Douglas with 36 students, but you're in a community that's increasingly becoming bilingual. So you have a lot of migrants that are going into schools that have never had, in black neighborhoods, and never had bilingual services. So a lot of them are just basically lost in there. And originally, it's getting better since the beginning of last school year. So you can take a school down. It's illegal to separate homeless kids into one building. That's against the McKinney. But you could take an existing neighborhood school and you could have ESL services, and let's make it. My suggestion is to make these ESL centers, where you can put all your resources and maybe these 2 or 3 schools, and then have students from outside of the area and come and fill those classrooms. Because you already have a bunch of empty space in these schools, because these schools may have been built for 300, 400, 500 students, maybe 1,000, but you might have 200 kids or less in the school building. So make these regional ESL centers. That's one of the things. That was the main thing I wanted to bring up at the board meeting, how you can use these buildings.
Yeah, because you had such experience seeing the facilities and the need, so
Right.
you brought the pieces together.
Because I remember at the beginning of last school year, I saw a kid. I was subbing an ESL class, and he's on the computer playing games. Of course, because he doesn't know English. And since I took the computer, put on YouTube, learn English, said, "Here you go, young man. Here you can start studying English." Because at that time we welcomed the students. Hey, come, but we had nothing. They was not really prepared for the students branching out into schools that it was normally. And then you had last year. You had what I call the 20-day war, before they changed the funding formula from schools. It was based on how many students you had enrolled for 20 days. So you had schools basically going out to the police stations trying to get these kids into their schools. Under the Homeless Act, you basically go anywhere you wanted to go to. It didn't. Some schools didn't allow it, but that's a whole other story. But so you had one school that was getting the kid, hey, we bilingual at our school, send your kids here, a mile and a half away. While the neighborhood school, which didn't have any bilingual services, are like, well, they supposed to be coming here. But you had no services for them, but you wanted them in there because you wanted the money.
And that's what I wanted to bring up is the retention. On the first day of school, the number of students determines the amount of funding that the school gets or that the CPS gets.
Yeah, not this year, but that's how it been.
That's how it been,
now,
as far as I understand it.
Now, as soon as those 20 days was up, well, you're not in the boundaries.
So what should the Chicago public school system be doing to support retention of these children, these students going to school for the entire school year? What should they be doing in your opinion?
With the ESL, Some of the ESL students.
With retention, just everyone coming to school, not just on the first day when there's a free bus ride, supposedly, but
About the students in general, right?
yeah, the students in general
You
throughout the school
have
year.
to work with the parents, and if you don't get to the parents, you're not going to get to the students. So if you work with the parents, you need to bring back the truant officers. You got to bring that back. Knock on the doors, make them phone calls. You know the parents are all constantly changing their phone numbers, but you have to figure out how to keep a good working relationship with the parents. You got to strengthen your PACs. The parent auxiliary committees, parents. Those are the people who reach out to the parents and train the parents. If you don't reach the parents, you don't reach the kids.
You spoke about that 20-day rule. So in that 20 days, the average of the kids that are at that school in that 20 days determines how much money the school gets?
Up until this year. This year they changed that. They don't have that formula this year. But up until this year, that's basically how it do. How many students, your student population on that 20th school day determine your funding for the next year. I believe that's how it worked.
Oh.
And
So
it changed.
It changed, because a different formula. I can't exactly go into details how the math works this year, but it's based on now the needs of this particular school, not the amount of students. But until then, everybody wanted as many seats in that bodies in them seats. Even if you had to go out your boundaries, if your school had the space to go out the boundaries or had the ability to get that student in there, so you was able to have schools outside of the boundaries, especially as homeless students, because technically they had no boundaries, getting students to go to their school to get them bodies in there, even if you didn't have any ESL to work with. Now, eventually, I started seeing them get material in the Spanish, or then everybody was mainly for the Spanish, but you have Portuguese-speaking kids, you have French-speaking kids. Everybody didn't speak Spanish. And eventually I started seeing where some schools would take iPads with Google Translate where they can just read over the material. And then I saw some kids actually do their work in cursive, and I hope the teachers can read it. The younger teachers, that is.
Mm-hmm.
You have such experience, and then how did you... we don't have that much time left, but how did you get knocked off the ballot?
Okay, and this is one of my mistakes. They took a long time to get the maps out. So you want to prepare for a race. You have to at least know where you're running. And they basically didn't get the map out until it was time to circulate the petition. And then if you looked at the map closely, you really couldn't read. If you saw it online, it was so small, you really could not see where the boundaries were. And I did able to see that it said that the 16th ward and the 16th ward 2nd precinct was in the 9th district. And then I was able to get a larger map, but didn't really have all the streets named on each what looked like a block. So I thought I was running in the 9th district until I got a call that, no, you're in the 8th district. And when I looked at the map again, I was actually one block out of the 9th district. And by this time, it's the heat of summer, and I probably would have fallen out knocking on all the doors in the 8th district. But I've never seen where they put a boundary that blocks in the middle of a voting precinct. I don't even know how they're going to do it in a voting booth. Because when you go vote, you go in there and say, hey, I'm going to the 16th ward, 2nd precinct, give me my ballot, and this is where I'm going to go. How are they going to... I should have been early voting just to see how they do this. How are they going to know which Chicago Board of Election precinct am I in by giving them my precinct? And so that's what kind of confused me, because I just thought you're just going to be in your one precinct.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe you should not vote early and then go vote in person and then inquire at the precinct.
Right. But I just want to add this. And in previous other elections, it was up to your opponent to challenge your petitions. But in this election, if you didn't have 1,000 signatures when you come up there, they just didn't accept it. Instead of waiting me to put it in and see if my opponent is going to challenge me or not.
So what you say is that in the past, if you had only one signature, but nobody challenged you, you were still on the
you
ballot.
basically would get on.
Yes, and we do not have enough time, but we'll discuss this in the future about how that rule might have changed. Keith Kysel, how could our viewers learn more about you?
Well, I have a Facebook page, Keith Kysel.
Let's spell your name.
Yeah.
Kysel.
SEL, Keith Kysel, right? And I did create a Facebook group. Can't think of the name of it, but Chicago Board of Elections, Chicago School Board Election Group, something like that. You start Googling, you'll find it.
Yeah, find Keith and then navigate to there. Thank you so much for joining us on Community Unity Now, the D Tycoon Show. That's Bill Morton. I'm Trudy Leong. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you again next week.